from the national championship game. It feels crazy to say that out loud. It has been a long season of ups, of downs, of swings, of upsets, and it's all led us to this. Georgia, TCU, here on the Field of 12 Media Network. My name is Greg Waddell. We got Michael Felder. We got Christian Hackenberg. And we are not together on site like we were last year at the college football playoff, unfortunately. But that does not mean we do not have a marathon of coverage planned for you to watch this national championship play out and get all the analysis, reactions, and drinks, I'll be honest with you, that you need. I know Hack's got a bucket of beer somewhere over there, right? Come on, Hack.
Yeah. I got a little bucket of Busch lattes, drink of choice here, the Hackenberg household. And to echo what you were saying there, Greg, I think some little poor bar / brewery / something right outside of SoFi Stadium is probably thankful that we're not there, because I know we'd have put a hurting on their stocks. So
you are certainly correct, my friend. Felder, it's great to see you. You excited for this game? You got to be.
Yeah, man. Of course I'm excited. I'm excited this season's about to end too. Like, your boy's beat down, man.
Needs a break.
I need a break.
Felder, that your notebook probably needs a break too at this point, right?
Yeah, man.
I got
How
many Bic pens did you burn through?
Dude, hey, you know these are the guys. These are my guys. I love a Bic. But I'm ready. I'm ready. This is everything I got for the game. So I'm ready to rock and roll. We got a lot of blank space, and in the words of Taylor Swift, I'll write your name on it. So we're gonna see who shows up tonight.
I love it. There's a lot of potential names that could write their own names in the history books tonight. TCU, sizable underdogs into this game, but it appears the Horned Frogs may just be a team of destiny. Georgia trying to do what only one other program has done in the college football playoff era, go back-to-back as national champions. I'm very excited for this. For all of those watching out there, you can watch us on the Field of 12 YouTube channel. You can listen to us on the SiriusXM app. But for tonight, more importantly, we are going to be doing a live watch-along with everybody from the network, all the faces that you have seen on the Field of 12 After Dark all season long. All of us have been invited. We will be in and out all night. I believe Rob Doster himself, founder of the Field of 12, will be hosting, emceeing. Michael Felder's going to kick us off. That will start immediately after this show ends and immediately as kickoff begins at 7:30 p.m. Eastern tonight. That's on playback, so you can see the link for that in the Field of 12 Twitter. Just keep an eye out. I'm sure you'll get tweets and notifications from us all night. All right, boys, let's start. We normally do the traditional toast. I think I'm just going to speak for us because we got a lot to talk about tonight. To this game, just as a group, to this game, right? Georgia, TCU, David Goliath. I'm excited for it. Cheers.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. I think that this is you said David Goliath. I go Cinderella, but at the end of the day, what we're dealing with is a team that nobody thought would be here. Nobody thought could get here, and they're there. And so now it's on their racket. You got to go out there and you got to hold serve. So I'm very excited to see what TCU does.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it's a great bow on top of this football season. We've had so many ups and downs, kind of like Greg hinted at. The way TCU did it, very admirable. Max Duggan coming in, his story of the year he's had. And then obviously all the hype Georgia had last year, to me, they kind of just did it quietly this year. Everyone kind of expected them to fall on their face at some point in time, and they never really did. And the way that they reloaded after losing all that talent. So, again, I stand by what I said. I still think that the national championship game was kind of what we got last week with Georgia and Ohio State, in my opinion. But TCU could prove me wrong. And that's the beauty of the sport, and that's the beauty of college sports in general. It's very unpredictable, and this TCU team has done some pretty incredible things and found ways to keep themselves in fights all year long. And I it wouldn't surprise me if they did tonight.
So one subplot I just want to throw out there for any of our gamblers who watch this show. You know I'm a betting man. We are brought to you by Bet Rivers. And I don't know who I'm betting in this game. I have, as I speak, 54 minutes until kickoff. And these two are going to convince me who I need to bet on. I'll tell you right now, my gut tells me 13's a lot of points for the team of destiny, my friends. But I'm willing to listen to Hack, to Felder, and by 7:30 p.m., 7:29 p.m. Eastern, there will be a bet placed by these fingers right here on this very show. So, Hack, you kind of alluded to it with just the differing paths of these two teams, right? Georgia, everybody had their eyes on them from the moment this season started, from the offseason, from last January, right? This is the team to beat. They are on the throne. And then you have TCU, who, I mean, until even last week, we were not sure they would be here. And there's a lot of conversation about how they got here. And we've had the conversations about how they got here with a string of quote unquote lucky, fortunate, whatever you want to call it, events, some backup quarterbacks, some scramble fire drill field goals at the last second. They also, I mean, they went toe to toe with Michigan. They got some fortunate moments in that game, but their biggest players shone pretty bright in that spot. Should we really be that surprised that TCU is here today, Felder? What do you think?
I don't think we should be. I mean, this is at some point, once you get the job done all the time, you get the job done. And that's the big thing for me is it's hard to win 7 games. It's hard to win 8. And then it's harder to win the 10 to get to 11. And then it's harder to win 12. And when you get to the 13th game and they have an opportunity to win that 13th game, it's not a mistake. They didn't fall, they didn't go ass over tea kettle into winning these games. They figured out a way to do it. And so, yeah, they belong here. And what they did to Michigan a week ago, I mean, it was one of those things where I had Michigan fans telling me that Michigan was Superman, and they walked up, they tugged on Superman's cape, and they shoved a whole rock of kryptonite down his throat and said, on to the next one. So to me, they absolutely belong here, and I'm very glad that they got the opportunity. I think back to, good grief, what is that, 2007, 2008 with LSU and the whole idea of undefeated in regulation. TCU has the same thing, undefeated in regulation, and they lost on a very, especially with the new overtime rules, they lost on a very slim margin that I thought they still probably, if you go back and look at the replay, I thought Kendra Miller was in the game or was in the end zone. So we'll see what happens. But they belong in this game. I agree with Christian. I think that Ohio State is probably, they're clearly on paper a better football team. But I think that they also gave Georgia a better game. So I guess we'll get into that as we go through here. But but TCU belongs here. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, I second that. And I think one of the cool things about this TCU team, a team, I'll bring this team up, Kansas, right? We were watching this Kansas team, and to me, that was a Cinderella. And then they hit a point where the magic dust ran out.
Yes.
Middle of the year this year. This TCU team, and I would argue that I can't think of a team that on paper, taking all the variables into it, continued to grow and find an identity throughout the year up into the Michigan game, like a true crescendo up into the semifinal game where they finally didn't have a killer, super insane performance from Max Duggan, but it was a win by committee. They had a great performance in the backfield. They did things in their own way. And I was listening to Kirby Smart talk about it, just toughness and competitive nature. It's the first time when he watched tape and he watched a team play where that competitive nature and competitive drive actually jumped out on tape. People talk about it, you sit there and you watch it, but this team just developed an identity, developed a mentality throughout the year. And the development was something that, again, I paid attention to and looked at and thought is really incredible, and something I think us as college football fans need to sit back and reevaluate no matter what happens tonight.
I have
really
two
incredible
things.
what they did.
I have 2 things. And I'd love to get your response to this, because Duggan in the Big 12 championship game, what he was able to do.
Yeah.
And then a guy who nobody knew his name, Amari DeMarcado, just showing up. Even if you take out that 70-yard run, still ran for like 80 yards. Like, let's go.
Yep.
Like, that's the toughness that you're talking about, right?
Yeah. It jumps out on tape, man. And the team bought in. I think Trevor Knight hinted at this previously as well. The team bought into the toughness that Sonny Dykes preached, and everyone buys into it. But they eat, sleep, drink that shit, and it shows on tape. And the way that they continue to just develop, grind through the ups and downs is really spectacular. Testament to the kids in the locker room, testament to the coaching staff and the culture that they're building down there. And like I said, I find it hard to find another team that developed both from a field of play standpoint and then also as a team and cultural identity standpoint, the way TCU did into this year. And ultimately it's what put them in this game tonight. So, yes, I agree with you. They belong here. I also, like I said, stand by the fact that when you watch the two performances from last week, in my opinion, the Ohio State team put together the best performance that we've seen against this Georgia team. Had a chance to win it, couldn't capitalize. So we'll see what TCU can do. They got a tough task ahead to be able to put together a product like that.
How much do you guys believe in the quote unquote team of destiny? Because you guys have both been on high level football teams. I don't know that you've ever been, maybe you have at any level. Maybe you've been on a team that has had this sort of string of just, you trust them in big games. Like, is that a real thing that translates onto the field itself, Hack?
That's kind of what I'm getting at, is I don't think we've ever seen it the way that this TCU team has. And again, it wasn't all, fairy dust and luck. Like it wasn't sprinkles and cupcakes. Like they went out and earned it. And it was a combination of the two. And I think that's the beauty in it. And that's why I think we need to really sit there and look at it. Like it was a philosophical as well as turn on the tape, this is who we are type of combination that we haven't seen. I haven't seen it, right? I'll say that. I'm not going to say we, I'll just say me. And if you guys agree, great. But, so like the team of destiny stuff, like, yeah, that everyone's going to throw labels on it. The media is going to throw labels on it. It's going to get clicks. It's going to be on top of, it's going to be in headlines. But to me, it's just a true testament to true development, true buy-in, and ultimately that leading to wins. And that's what it's just, you don't see it that often. And when you do, they create labels like that for it. And, for me, it's not necessarily that. They gotta name it something. When you haven't seen it before, really, you got to name it something. And that's, I guess, what they're throwing at it. And for me, I just think it's the top of the top of true development, both culturally and from a game plan and strategy and identity on the football field standpoint.
So for me, I'm not big into team of destiny. I don't like. Destiny's predetermined, and guess what? Nobody predetermined that TCU was going to go to the playoff this year.
Right.
And honestly, if the power brokers had their way, TCU wouldn't be here. So, to me, when I look at it, I think it's about where there's a will, there's a way, and I think about that a lot with Auburn. Auburn 2010 with Cam Newton, and obviously the difference is Auburn had a generational talent at quarterback, and so. The big thing I'm looking at is Max Duggan. And the coolest thing for Max Duggan is he's probably the more talented quarterback in this game. Like, am I crazy for saying that? Yeah. Like he's probably the more talented quarterback in this game, which that doesn't usually happen. So I'm looking at that, and I honestly think, guys, I think the big thing is it's not destiny. It's just you got to make your own fate, and these guys are doing it. And obviously, you flip it over to Georgia, and Georgia's making their own fate too. And this is a team that we all thought was going to take a huge step back because they lost all those guys. What did they lose? 6 first-round draft picks, and then the best, the guy I thought was the smartest defensive player I've seen in the Kobe Dean. He goes in the 3rd round. Then you lose some other players too. Like, we didn't expect, like, if we're going to talk team of destiny or teams that make their own fate, Georgia belongs in that discussion as well, because they're doing stuff that they're not supposed to do. How many teams lose that many guys to the NFL and then are like, they shake it off and are just ready to rock and roll? So, and lose Nolan Smith during the season.
Yeah.
and Ladd McConkey. Can we talk injuries right now going into the game? Because Jalen Carter, I didn't know what was up with him in the semifinal. Apparently has an ankle. Ladd McConkey, knee. You throw in, the Chaz kid at the linebacker spot, and then you throw in, they've got guys that got problems, and they keep getting it done. So, and then obviously Kendre Miller is another one. So what we're going to see out of this is going to be interesting, but both of these teams they're outperforming what we thought we thought they would be this year.
To me, though, here's the difference. Sorry, Greg, to jump you off. Here's the only difference is you're talking about Georgia, who has recruited stock the cupboards, right? The cupboards may be unproven. You ain't opened up that can of chicken noodle soup in there, but it's some of the best chicken noodle soup based upon, high school career and stuff like that you can find. Whereas TCU didn't necessarily have that luxury.
Right.
They never really have. They've always had some runs of some developmental people, right? So Georgia doesn't surprise me as much because of what they have in the cupboards. And those guys stepped up and ultimately were put in situations to be successful consistently. And that goes back to the way Kirby Smart has coached, led, put guys in positions, set them up for success. So Georgia doesn't necessarily surprise me as much. I knew it was a tall task, but it wasn't something that they couldn't handle. This TCU team had to develop a lot in 14, 15 weeks, short period of time. Incredible.
Yeah, both situations have their own elements that seem unprecedented, whether it's a first-year head coach for TCU with a roster full of guys that have never even been in a bowl game, or whether it's Georgia, who loses an unprecedented amount of talent in the first round of the NFL draft, has their struggles early. I mean, there are people after that Missouri game to scare. Were we really looking at this team like they were the top of the entire sport? Right. And for them to regroup and get back, they're both very, very impressive. Just for the record, quickly, we touched on injuries. Kendre Miller is a game time decision, how he is listed. He will warm up. He may play in this game depending on how that warm up goes. I want to go back to the quarterback matchup because I think it's fair to say, guys, both these teams would feel pretty good to have the ball in a one-score game with a minute left, and they trust their guy. So let's just pose it as simple as this. Which quarterback would you rather have in that exact situation? If we're talking a 2-minute drill, got to go 80 yards, down 3. Which quarterback do you trust more in this game to get it done? Hack, you're our quarterback. Who you got?
In this game?
In this game.
Stetson.
Yes.
In this game. And I've said it before, the performance that Max Duggan put on in the Big 12 championship game was one of the most like Tebow-esque, insane, just put the team on my back. Freaking, you would picture him like running through a World War I movie, trench warfare, just shit hanging everywhere, bullets flying, blood everywhere, like probably a broken foot or something like that facing the other way. Like, it was insane. But in this game, just because of what they're dealing with and what I think Georgia's going to be able to do offensively, I'd rather have Stetson Bennett in that situation.
Felder, agree?
This is an exercise that I like to do the other way.
Reverse engineer it, my guy. Because
Max on Georgia or Stetson on TCU, what do you got?
Ooh. Same thing. Matt, I'm taking whoever's on Georgia. but it just so happens that Stetson's wearing the G.
Yeah.
And Max is not.
I just think that...
I'm starting to nitpick at this though, because I feel like while reverse engineering that, great flip by you, first of all, Felder. While doing that route, I feel like it does minimize the element of how clutch Stetson has been, though, right?
Hang on. I love Stetson Bennett. I've liked Stetson Bennett since I was covering the opening, and he was showing up in the postal cap. That's why they call him the postman. I've been a fan for a long time when it was like him and Kenny Pickett. Like, I dig him. All I'm saying is that there is a difference in ceilings here. And I don't think Max is the highest ceiling quarterback. But Christian, highest ceiling quarterbacks don't always do the whole thing. I just think that Max. Go ahead.
Here's my thing, though, and this goes back, and I stand on this, and I've said this multiple times on this show throughout the year. To me, there are moments where quarterbacks can single-handedly do things, right? And every really good one does, and you can pull it up on tape at some point in time. But quarterback is still the most dependent position in sports. Bar none. Outside, you can argue me till you're blue in the face. I'm going to stand on this mountain and die on it. The quarterback position is still the most dependent position in sports. There's so many different variables that go into it. 22 guys on the field. Everyone has to do their job. You have to be. You could do exactly what you were supposed to do. Somebody screw up royally, and it looks like you're the jerk off because you threw a football into the middle of nothing when someone was supposed to run it in cut and they ended up breaking out or stopping short. Right?
Christian, I played defensive back.
Yeah,
I played safety. Like
100%, dude. So to me, when you look at it like that, right? When you look at it like that, as clutch as Stetson Bennett is, and as clutch as any quarterback you talk about, somebody else always steps up and makes a play too.
Bingo.
Somebody always does. And I'm not saying that TCU doesn't have the horses. What I'm saying is I think when you look at this game, you look at the matchups, I think the way the game's going to go, I think the way Georgia's probably going to approach this football game, there's going to be more things going for them. They're going to have more playbook open at that point in time, or they're going to have already set up some things or physically wore some people down to create the mismatches that they need to create.
Yes.
To ultimately allow Stetson Bennett to have that clutch Kobe Bryant in the fourth with 3 seconds going down from the corner fading away type of moment. And Max may self-create it like he did. And that's the beauty of it is it can still happen. But I just think that he has a higher wall in front of him due to all of the other variables out there than Stetson does.
Oh, I totally agree with you. Listen, here's the thing. And I don't know, I know we're going to do our keys to the game and the later, but I think you're spot on. And let me ask you this. Coming into this game, if you're Georgia, do you come into this game thinking we're going to get 50? Or do you come into this game kind of poking and prodding?
Oh, I think if I'm Georgia, I'm coming into this game setting the tone and setting the standard of who they are and being physical, running the football, because I think that's how their whole offense goes. I think if Stetson can work off play action, take shots, if you're asking Stetson to take shots consistently in different manners, I think it's a different ballgame. But if he has the ability to work off play action, get some guys running, manipulate some safeties and linebackers, high, low, the whole nine, I think he's really, really good. And it's what he does. And I think it's what the team's built for. So I think there's a little bit of both because I really do think that at the light shining, Stetson Bennett has a little bit of that chip and fuck you in him where he wants to step up and play really well. So I think that they're going to be aggressive, but I don't think that they're going to be so aggressive that they're going to get outside of their identity.
Okay.
The one thing that I would love to see in result, if from a positive standpoint, if Georgia wins, we might get another hungover Stetson Bennett Good Morning America interview.
Oh, man.
That'd be fun. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that.
He needs the top one from last year, which is going to be hard.
I'm going to say, I mean, Hack, you're our veteran beer drinking quarterback here. Do you think he shows up more or less hungover when we get there, if they get the victory?
You got to go bigger and better. You can't. He might have to show up with a beer in hand this time.
We can only hope, right?
A breakfast barley sandwich, man. Come on, dude. That would be it.
I mean, the man is getting older now. He's what, 25? His hangovers probably hurt him in a way they did last year.
I know.
All right, let's get into the matchups.
There's no hangovers if you honeymoon it, though.
This is true. This is true. We got about 35 minutes left until the tentative kickoff time. Let's get into the matchups. Offense versus defense. TCU's on offense. Georgia's on defense. TCU, obviously a big play, explosive, can score with the snap of a finger style offense. We still don't know about Kendre Miller as of this moment right now. I have not seen any formal confirmation yet. If you're TCU, Felder, what do you try to attack from the Georgia defense?
Secondary, obviously. With the exception of Keely Ringo, I don't trust anybody in Georgia secondary. And I'm push the ball down the field. And I don't know how healthy Jalen Carter's going to be, which means no Nolan Smith, obviously. They haven't had him for a long time. If Jalen Carter's not healthy enough to push off that ankle, then now you don't have that pass rush push. So all of a sudden, I got some time. And if you give me some time, I got a 6'5" guy over here. I got a 6'5" guy over here. And then I got a guy that runs a 4.4 40 in Tay Barber and another guy that runs a 4.48 or whatever in Darius Davis. Let's push. Let's go. Let's go get crazy. Like, let's make your guys make mistakes. And guess what? We're going to get rewarded because they call pass interference so often.
Yeah. I think they need a fast start, similar to last week. Yep. They uncharacteristic. We talked about that heading into the Michigan game. Both those teams had a propensity
notoriously
to start,
slow starters.
Yeah, had a propensity to start slow. I think they need a fast start. I think part of that is being able to take shots early and capitalize on a couple of them. But I do think that, especially with a heavy focus on some RPO and stuff like that, they do need to be able to establish some type of run game, whether it be slow grind, hopefully getting explosive like they kind of did last week, or just sprinkle it in there enough to keep Georgia aware of it, right?
Yes.
So for me, I think
it's quarterback run.
Correct. And using Max Duggan, you got to let it fly at this point in time. So I think that threat in their run game helps them because now you have to account for 15, more so than I think that they accounted for 7 last week, and that actually kind of got them in some key situations.
Yep.
So for me, it's you got to have a fast start, and you have to be able to blend your style of play, blend your offensive what you're trying to take advantage of. And like I said, I think it's a heavy focus on RPO, taking shots and staying on schedule. They need to be able to use the run game to stay on schedule, and then also take their shots and capitalize on them. Because I agree with you. I think the secondary is probably, if you're gonna pinpoint a hole or a weak spot in the battleship, that's where you're shooting all your torpedoes. But you have to also be cognizant that you got only so many torpedoes, and you have to hit on a couple of them. So
that's go ahead.
Yeah, for me, that's resting solely on the coaching staff shoulders in terms of timing and setting it up and the game inside the game.
I literally, when I was writing the newsletter last week with them going into the Michigan game, and I said, aim small, miss small.
Yep.
Pick your spots and hit those spots, and you're going to be okay. And that's what they did a week ago. They have to do the same thing this week, and it's going to be really interesting to see if they're able to do that tonight, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah, we're a week removed from the Ohio State-Georgia game. Obviously, 34 attempts through the air for Ohio State in that game for 348 yards. You saw Stroud have success, but they did have 32 rushing attempts. You saw Stroud use his legs a little bit. Yep. Do you expect to see the same from Duggan in this game? I mean, he is a guy who can make you pay that way. Do you think that's going to be a part of the game plan, Hack?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I think, like I said, it needs to be, because I don't think that they're as physically imposing they're a physically imposing team, but
I wanted to. Can I ask you that before? No. I don't mean to interrupt you, but like,
no, you're fine.
They look like they hulked up against Michigan.
No, for sure. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is anyone can do it once. You got to do it consistently with the big boys. And for me, like I said, I'm not shoving all in on that, right? So I'm gonna have my counterpunch, right, with Max and being able to use him. Like I'm going to need to empty the cupboards from that standpoint. Anything that any wrinkle you can throw in any type of run scheme that you're going to bring to the table, you're going to have something where Max can either throw it and or run it and or do one of both if he needs
and take one guy out.
Correct. You're lightening the box. There's a lot of things when it comes down to like, how am I going to make numbers work and the geometry of the run game? How am I going to make it work using all of my chess pieces? And Max is going to be a real important one. And I said this, he's got to, although some of the turnovers and stuff weren't necessarily on him last week, he's got to play really well today, in my opinion. So a lot on 15, both with his legs and his arm.
Yeah, he's got it. Listen, but as you mentioned, quarterback is a very dependent job.
Yeah.
So you can't have a guy go to get it and then it go off him and then go right to another guy.
100%.
You can't have that happen. And so but I do love the fact that he has the ability to, whether it's a safety or it's a linebacker or it's a defensive end, he has the ability to hold that guy to keep him out of the run game. And I think that's something that they have to take advantage of in this football game.
Yep.
So if you listen to the post-game press conferences in TCU, Michigan last week, a word that you heard plenty of times from Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh was opportunistic when describing TCU as a team. And all season long, in my opinion, they have been a team that has capitalized on their opponent's mistakes in high leverage situations. If you flip this matchups wise to Georgia on offense, TCU on defense, is there anything that Georgia really needs to do other than just play an error-free game to get this done? Like, we can talk that this is where they can be most successful, but do they just need to be themselves but not make mistakes? And there's a national championship waiting for them, Felder?
Here's the thing. Is Darnell Washington playing?
I don't know.
That's neither do I. Yeah. That's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was it's rhetorical.
Yeah.
But to be themselves, they need Darnell Washington. Because in that 12 personnel package that they run, with Kenny McIntosh in the backfield, Brock Bowers, Darnell Washington, and then Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones might be the first offensive tackle off the board. Excuse me. Pete Skoronski will probably be the first offensive tackle off the board. He might be the second offensive tackle off the board. But when you put those three guys together, they create problems in the run game, but also in the pass game. That's Georgia being themselves. But if you don't have Darnell Washington, then they're not being themselves. And then they have to figure out something else to do. And that's the thing that impressed me the most about the game against Ohio State. Because when Washington went into the tunnel, they had to be something different. They had to not be themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that I find interesting. So to answer your question, I think no. I don't think they can be themselves and win. I think they've got to be something different, which is what I was alluding to when I talked about, do they come out wanting to score 50, or do they come out kind of poking and prodding and probing and trying to find where they have advantage? That's what I was kind of alluding to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's your answer to that?
I think they come out on the attack.
Yeah.
I think that means, because here's the thing, you can put another tight end in the game and still go 12 personnel, which means that TCU will go base personnel and you go base people, but then Kenny McIntosh can split out wide. And we saw this on the touchdown they scored against Ohio State. Kenny McIntosh split out wide.
Safety.
Yeah. And they split out wide. They run a tunnel screen. The tunnel screen was just an A-gap run.
Yeah.
And he just, it's a running back running through traffic. Guess what? He's really good at this. And I think I don't mean to like show my hand, but I think Kenny McIntosh is going to be the MVP of this game.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love Todd Monken, and I think he does a great job. He's got a ton of experience in the game, mm-hmm. At pro level, he's got it all. And I really do think that he's going to be a big X factor in that for all the reasons that you mentioned. I just think it's going to be really key for Georgia to still be able to run the football. I keep going back to it. I guess I'm kind of old school in that thought process, and I've showed my cards with that because TCU did a great job of forcing fits. Michigan and run fits and forcing Michigan to get outside of themselves from that. And that was Michigan's identity. Mm-hmm. And then this goes back to what I was saying is Michigan went from their identity to like, who the fuck is that?
Yep.
We need to see Georgia. And I think Georgia and Todd Monken are going to do a great job of, if you force us out of who we are, our adjustments aren't going to be so extreme. They're still going to be in a box of who we are and what we can do from a personnel standpoint. And we're going to find different ways to create mismatches, like you just said, Felder, to take advantage of. And they have the guys to do it. Brock Bowers being one of them. Yeah. Kenny McIntosh being another. Like, they have the personnel to do it. And I think that they're tooled to be able to counterpunch in a much more effective manner than Michigan did if TCU comes with a physical stop the run type of game plan defensively.
But here's the thing. That's what I was trying to get at is like that screen to McIntosh. That is a handoff.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same. Like, it's an easy throw for Stetson. It's an easy catch for a running back. And then it's also, we don't have to worry about the 4 defensive linemen because they're already upfield. Now what do we have? We've just got a lane.
Big guys on little guys all over the place.
Exactly. That's what I was getting at, man. That's all. Like, I agree with you. That's why I think he's going to be one of the biggest piece in this game.
Yeah. We're about 25 minutes, just to do a quick reset here. We got about 25 minutes left in our national championship preview show. We are here on the Field of 12 Media Network. Christian Hackenberg is here. Michael Felder is here. My name is Greg Waddell. We are going to be on playback as soon as the game starts. Our entire crew will be rolling in and out. You can watch the game live with us. We'll be able to bring some people up on stage. You can hear our reactions, our thoughts live as the game unfolds. And smart people like Christian Hackenberg and Michael Felder will be able to break down what they are seeing as every single play happens in that game. It's going to be a really, really fun time. I am not at all closer to knowing who I'm going to be placing my bet on. We have 22 minutes before I need to lock that bet in. The only bet I'm confident in right now is that Christian Hackenberg over 11.5 beers consumed tonight feels like the lock of the century. I don't know what he's at right now, but he's looking good doing it. All right, we've got a couple big picture things to get to, and then we're going to go pure X Factor, keys to victory style speed round for both of these teams. But first, broad landscape. The playoffs expanding. Our name as a network is where this sport is headed, 12 teams. Would it not be pretty special or pretty meaningful and kind of the perfect handoff for a team like TCU to come in and win this right as we are expanding the field? Like, we don't see this much in college football. It's pretty rare that we see a team that pretty objectively is not one of the most talented teams in the country wins a national title. I don't know that it has happened in the playoff era. Is that a good or a bad thing for the sport? Felder, let's go to you first.
So here's the thing. I think TCU is super talented. I think they're talented in a different way. And this is a team that's not talented when they're not step on campus talented. This is, and I was saying, this is like when, and I know you're a basketball guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is like when Princeton or Harvard or Davidson or somebody has a gang of seniors and they're like, oh, wow, we can beat these young boys because we're adult men. And that's what I think TCU has, and I think that's what the expansion of the playoff is going to bring to the table. I think that's what we're going to see a lot more of is experienced teams who've played with each other for a long time. They're gonna force people to. You're gonna have to beat us because we're not going to lose. And Christian, I know you played in the Big Ten, and whether it was Wisconsin or Iowa. Like, the idea of you have to beat us because we will not lose, that's going to become a bigger part of what we see in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's solid. I don't know how to answer your question, Greg. Part of me says, yeah, I see what you're saying, but then part of me also says, like, that kind of defeats the purpose because they're like, well, they did it with 4 teams. You know what I mean? Just on a broad stroke. You know what I mean? But
How many more teams do you think TCU could beat to get here?
You see, I don't know. That's a hard part. That's a great question. That's a damn good question. You know what I mean? And I think that ultimately, what I want to see out of the 12, right? If we're going to talk big picture, what I want to see out of getting 12 is that we're going to get the 12 best teams. And whether that's defined by talent or whether that's defined by all the things that Felder just talked about, we're going to get the 12 best teams and we're going to let them play it out. And the beauty of the sport, again, a lot of variables go into it.
Yep.
What I would imagine happening is at the end of the day, the national championship game is going to be the 2 toughest, both mentally and physically teams, not necessarily talented, but toughest mentally and physical teams in the country are going to be playing each other, who are very, very well coached and ultimately earned in every way, shape, or form their appearance there. And for me, as a college football fan, that's what I want to see. You're going to see 2 very disciplined teams come out, play a great football game, very similar to the one that we watched last week, like I said, against Georgia and Ohio State. I thought that was probably one of the cleanest. I compared it to Beethoven for a reason. It was just one of the cleanest football games I've ever seen. And, obviously TCU did it in a different way, but
yes.
very
where does
much
Utah,
so.
12 teams, where does Utah come out in this?
And that's the other thing. I don't know, but that's another great example. Penn State, the way they were playing at the end of the year, it allows teams to develop. It allows teams to show their growth, similar to how TCU did it. It just opens up the floodgates for a larger net of teams that develop properly and really grow, and you get to watch that development throughout the year. And ultimately, you're going to have the two hottest teams playing a national championship.
Yeah, is it fair to add on to that and say that it might become more about who's playing the best at the right time once we get there? Because that's definitely a thing in basketball. To Felder's point, on basketball guys, like it's not about how you play through February. You better show up in March.
You see it in the NFL.
Yes,
the year the Giants won the Super Bowl.
Bingo.
They were 500 when they got in, right? Or just
against
a hair over
undefeated Patriots.
Yeah, like you see the two hottest teams, and that's what people want to see. They want to see teams that are playing confident, playing clean, and are really, really rolling. And that's when you witness greatness on a consistent basis, in my opinion.
Can you explain playing clean to people? Because I don't think a lot of folks understand that concept.
Yeah, like clean, like they know what they're doing on both sides of the ball. They know who they are. They know their identity.
No MAs.
They're not going to beat themselves. You're not going to see what you saw with Michigan, where they send a cat blitz and the safety runs to the middle of the field and doesn't go cover the deep half. Like,
bingo.
You're not going to see that shit. You're going to see two teams that are very, very well-oiled machines operating at a high level. You're watching two Ferraris fully tuned up drag race.
There we go.
And that's what you want to see. That's the best product.
So I dig it. Like, I'm clean football. Like, clean football that's the difference between Saturday and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between Saturday and Sunday. Because on Sunday, if you're not clean, you know what they're going to do?
Bust them scissors out, boy.
So
you get to spend a lot more time with your family.
Yeah.
On your note here, Hack, hearing you talk about a clean game, right? Specific to tonight's game, does TCU need a chaotic, messy game? Like, are we alluding to that a little bit? Like, if this is a clean game, it's Georgia. But if there's any team in the sport that can make this messy, it's TCU, right?
They need to have Limp Bizkit blasted in that stadium. They need some chaos. They need a mosh pit and SoFi tonight, in my opinion. They need it because they thrive in that, and that's what they need. If Georgia can control the aux cord a little bit and play some good, clean, like throw the old 45 on a whatever the hell that thing's called,
a record player.
Yeah, record player, clean. Watch out now.
Georgia wants that old time rock and roll.
Oh my God. If you hand an aux cord to Stetson Bennett, the entire building might burst into flames. I just want to say that. All right. So the final big picture question I have, the flip side of this, Georgia, again, only the second team in the playoff era with not with a chance to repeat, but they would be the second team to repeat in that era. It would be 10 years since Alabama last did it. The Bulldogs would now do it. The conversation when Alabama was doing it after they got their second and the years following turned into, well, is this really good for the sport to have such a dominant entity? Are we going to get there with Georgia if they win this game? Like, obviously, good football is good football, but does Georgia become some untouchable monster the way Alabama did if they win this game? You're shaking your head, Felder. You think no?
No, because they still got to deal with Alabama. They still got to deal with them. And I'll be honest, man, like, I cover recruiting as well. And let me tell you something. Nick Saban got in his bag. Nick Saban he feels personally insulted, either whether it's by the committee or it's just he's in his bag. He's ready. And as long as Nick Saban's at Alabama, he's ready to rock and roll. Go ahead. Come on.
Here's the other thing too, is in the landscape of college football now, I think it's much harder to do what Nick Saban did with NIL and the transfer portal.
Yes.
I've said this too. The dissemination of talent is going to have, because kids want to play. So you're going to have a much more equally distributed, with the exception of a few schools. I think Georgia's on that brink right now. And I've said this, where they can be in the same ballpark as Alabama with accumulating talent, both from recruiting and then also from the transfer portal and stuff, having a very deep bench that can rinse and repeat.
Bingo.
Once you're in that world and you continue to win, it's easy to stay in that world. But we're watching it with Clemson right now, where once you fall out of that, kids want to go play ball and go win. So they're going to do that, and they're going to figure out different places, and that allows for other teams and other programs to start growing. So, for me, if Georgia does it, great. It's a great step in the right direction, but it's a much harder landscape overall for them to be able to do what Alabama did over the past 15 years.
Yeah.
It's a great point, Hack. I mean, approaching back-to-back national titles in the first couple of years of the transfer portal era would be quite the accomplishment from any program. All right. We are less than 10 minutes away, less than 15 minutes away, 13 minutes left in the show before we will wrap and jump over to playback, where you can watch the game live with us here on the Field of 12. I am still confused where my bet is going. The Bet Rivers app is open on my phone, and I need some answers, gentlemen. So we're going to start talking X factors, keys to victory. Let's go through both teams here, and I want some details. I want some explanation here. You better give me what you think is going to happen. We're leaning into prediction territory and why these guys will have success. Let's start with TCU. Who is the biggest X factor in this game for the Horned Frogs? Felder, who you got?
I got Tay Barber. Tay Barber is an absolute freak. Like, I don't know if people have watched this guy, but Tay Barber is a guy that ran like this guy. He's a speedster. So give me Tay Barber. I think that we talk so much about Quentin Johnston. We talk a lot about Savion Williams, but I think Tay Barber on a little seam. Oh, good luck tackling him. There's no one on Georgia's team that can catch him if he gets the ball in space. And that's the part for me that I want to see him do more. And so I'm going Tay Barber as my X factor for TCU.
Hack, who you got?
I'm going Hodge, Winners, the safeties, and the nickels for TCU.
Oh yeah,
because if Georgia is able to take advantage of Brock Bowers, really the whole tight end room, and then
that's what Winners is. Winners is going to have to cover him.
Kenny McIntosh, those guys formationally, personnel wise, if they can continue to win that battle and create some mismatches, those guys are going to really have to play well, because I think if Georgia can do what I predict that they're going to be able to do, they're going to be in a lot of binds. They're going to see a lot of things. They're going to get some eye candy, and they're going to have to be hustling back to cover a guy who can really roll and be a difference maker, and a guy like Brock Bowers up the seam and in other areas of the football field. So I got a big focus on those guys. They're going to play an integral role, being able to both stop the run and then also have to worry about their assignments on the back end.
Okay, let me get just a quick, in response to your two X factors, give me a confidence level, 1 to 10, that your X factor will have success in tonight's game. I'm getting the sneaky way to get the short answer before we get the full prediction at the end. But Hack, 1 to 10, how confident are you that your X factor is going to find success tonight?
Yeah, I'll go 40-60. I think it's really hard. I think it's really hard to do it consistently. If they can do it when it matters, then you can take that 40%, great. But doing it for a full 4 quarters, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So if they can do it when it matters, huge. If not, if Georgia gets a couple really big explosives out of it, those guys are in for a world of hurt.
Yeah, if that's happening, we might call that night time.
Yes,
that's
correct.
What happens. Felder, same question to you, 1 to 10. Tay Barber, how confident are you he's going to have a big night?
Well, I'm gonna double back. I'm gonna say, listen, I think Hack is 100% correct, because Michigan had a chance to get the game to a 1-score game. TCU was not lined up correctly at all. and 14 for TCU got a tackle for loss on a screen. When it matters, they somehow showed up. So if I was going to rate Hacks, I'm going 6. I think they're going to show up. If I'm rating mine, I'm going to go 5. I'm only going 5 on mine.
Oh, wow.
Because I don't think I don't know that they're going to target him as much. He's a little guy. So I don't know they're going to target him as much, but the fact that they were able to, on a 3rd and goal from the 6, I believe, get a tackle for loss on a play that was perfectly set up, that I think those defensive guys made a decision after that Donovan Edwards run that we're going to be in the right space at the right time, even if we're not lined up the right way. So that's what I'm doing. All right, what do we got next? We got Georgia?
So, yeah, we're going Georgia X Factors. Let's have Hack go first on this one. Who you got for the Dogs?
What did I do?
Man. No, it wasn't you, Felder. It wasn't you, Felder.
Okay.
It was.
Oh, I know what it was, Hack. Does Hack need a moment to collect himself here?
I'm good.
Okay, Hack,
I'm
it's
good.
yours. It's
I'm
yours.
good. It was Rob. It was Rob.
What did I miss?
A group text, Felder. A group text. We'll fill you in later. Hack, who you got?
So I got the Georgia offensive line. Again, looking at what TCU did last week to force a Michigan team that had a very strong identity that's kind of similar to this Georgia team. I'm looking at the Georgia offensive line to be able to create both running lanes and then also give Stetson some time off of some big play action to be able to take some shots down the field. If they're able to do that, like I said, I think those linebackers and safeties are going to be in some binds and they're going to be able to take advantage of it. So I think the offensive line's got a big task ahead of them and something that they're probably used to and capable of doing. So I'm watching those guys.
13 tackles for loss last week for TCU.
Yep. So they got to win the trenches.
Yeah, I think the X factor for Georgia, again, I already said it, it's Kenny McIntosh.
Yep.
I mean, I think this kid is special. I was not sold on him coming into the year. And he's slowly sold me on him being, he reminds me a little bit of Brian Robinson from Alabama a couple of years ago, where he's like just a guy that's done everything. And he speaks back to the point that I was mentioning where like, oh, he's a senior. He's played a lot of football. Is he going to be the fastest player? Probably not. But you know what? He's good at pass pro. He understands how to line up in the slot. He understands how to line up in the backfield. He knows, and heck, he knows when he's supposed to move to the other side of the quarterback.
Yep.
Like he's got that. He's got that. He knows what he's doing. So yeah, I'm going Kenny McIntosh. I think he's going to be the MVP of this game.
Okay. Same question. The 1 to 10 confidence scale, Felder.
9. Like this is a thing I feel very firmly confident in.
Yeah. Okay. Hack, same trenches.
Yeah, the trenches. I got a very. I'm up on that. The 9. I'll go 9.
There we go.
Game.
All right. This is the first breakthrough moment. I feel like I'm finally coming around on who I might need to put my hard-earned money on. 5 minutes left before this bet will be placed, but I'm starting to see the board clearly, boys. That's dangerous for my friends over at Bet Rivers. Let's do keys to victory. Give me the one single biggest key to a TCU Horned Frog title tonight. Hack, what do you got?
I said it before. I know it's kind of cliche and it kind of goes against the point I said, but again, I think that there's going to have to be some special moments within this game where 15 shows up bigger than I think he ever has. So for me, the key to victory is Max Duggan playing the game of his life. If he does, TCU's got a shot.
Ooh, man. I have Duggan's legs on my list. So I'm going to put that in the group with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to go with D Winters holding up against the run game.
Ooh.
He has to.
Yeah.
He's the smallest linebacker that they have. He's that hybrid guy. And him holding up against the run game it's so important. Like I need to see it happen, and I need to see it happen consistently because this is a guy that had 3 tackles for loss against Michigan. I need to see him be able to do it against a Georgia team that might not be with Darnell Washington. So if he has an opportunity, whether it's I love the way that he's able to knife in. I love the way that he's able to hold edge. So this is what I'm looking forward to. So that's me. I'm going D winners.
Okay. Flip it, Georgia. Biggest key to victory, Felder. What's your answer?
I got a couple things written down. We already talked about how 12 personnel works out for Georgia without Darnell Washington. Stetson making smart choices. And then the other one I have is Bowers more active. I'm going to go with Bowers more active because that goes against the other thing that I just said, which is D winners holding up against the run game. But if Brock Bowers is more active, I think they've got a real problem. Because if you have to take your best or one of your best on-ball defenders and you got to move him away from the line of scrimmage, I think that creates a lot of opportunity for the Dogs.
Hack?
I'm gonna take a book out of Felder. I think this defensive backfield for Georgia has to make some plays. They have to win some 50-50 balls. And ultimately I think they just have to bend, don't break all night. And it goes back to what I said about TCU having to hit their shots with their torpedoes. If this Georgia secondary can just play assignment ball, bend, don't break, understand that they're going to have to make TCU earn everything that they get, allow their offense to possess the football, control it, and ultimately minimize damage. I think the Georgia secondary is going to be a big key in their factor outside everything else that I mentioned with the offensive line and things like that.
Sure.
So I think the secondary, just to kind of be a little more creative, show the defensive side of the ball a little love. I think that they're gonna need to make a play or two and just play a clean football game.
That's the story of the night, apparently. We're going to have to revisit this clean football game narrative at the end of this game in the post-game show here on the Field of 12. All right, 3 minutes. We're jumping over to playback. Again, you can watch the game live with us. We'll have everybody from the network in and out throughout the game. Please jump over. It is different than watching our show traditionally, so look for the links that we will be tweeting out all night from playback. It's time. Predictions. I want a score from this game. That is a specific note from producer Dagan Hughes. Hack, you are not allowed to quote unquote duck this question this time. We need an official score. We'll let you work on your official score because we're going to Michael Felder first. Felder, who wins this game and what is the final score?
Go Dogs. 37-23.
Oh, so the cover, the 1 point cover. Oh, that's dirty. All right, Hack.
I expect a few more fireworks, but I'm going Georgia 45, TCU 31. I adjusted some TCU scores. I gave them a couple extra points here and there, but ultimately, I think the Dogs pull away.
What was the song from last year, Hack? Do we still remember the dog song?
Who they coming down the track? I gotta lose it after that. But
they're gonna be singing in Athens, baby. They're gonna be singing in out west and down east. I think you guys are right. I think Georgia wins this game. But I can't get myself there to bet on it, boys. I can't do it. I can't do it. Listen, Felder, you swung me on one thing tonight, my friend. You swung me on one thing. You swung me on Tay Barber being the X factor tonight. So here's my bet over at Bet Rivers. You can place this same game parlay $100 to win $3,700. Tay Barber touchdown. Max Duggan 300 passing yards. TCU money line, baby. Frogs up, baby. Frogs up 43-42. And we will see you on playback with everybody from the Field of 12. We thank you for listening to us. It is time for the national championship. We'll see you tonight.